Okay, I've let some people in. Let's go ahead. Are you guys ready to get started?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So we're getting started just a couple minutes early. So thanks for coming to the Second Friday Art Talk. And let's see, the questions will be held for the last 15 minutes of the show, which Victor just let everybody know. All guests are going to remain muted until that time, except for the panelists that he's interviewing. So we're going to go ahead and hand it over to Victor, who is our host.
Thank you so much. May I ask the technicians to give us gallery view of the speaker? Not gallery view, but speaker view, so that we can see the speakers bigger. Thank you. So while they do that, welcome one and all to yet another Friday Art Talk. Sorry if I am not looking at you. I had to find my camera. We're coming close to 1 year of these art talks, which we've held virtually throughout the pandemic. And I'm super excited today to have three panelists who also have work in the book, and hence the pathway to these art talks. And they're going to be talking about themselves and their work and whatever else inspires them. For those within the audience, please feel free to put questions in the chat, and we will attend to those as we go. 15 minutes before we're done, we will have an open session where we have a Q&A. So there will be time for commentary, questions, and answers from the artists themselves. So before we get into it, I would just like to thank ArtPush.org, who put this together, made it possible by doing all the groundwork and ensuring that we have a community of artists to interact with each other while we're in isolation. This is the Friday Art Talk, and you can find the talks on fridayartwalk.com, and also the book. I think there's still copies available. If I'm mistaken, please let me know, Jess and Wes, but they should be available on artpush.org. All those links may be provided to you after the discussion, or during the discussion. You can put it in the chat if you need that information. With that being said, my name is Victor, and I'm also a visual artist, and I work with the artistic community. And today I'm so happy, so proud to introduce three members of our art community who also have work in the book, like I mentioned before. And we have Dave, if you can just wait. All right, we have Carolyn and Chrissy. All right, awesome. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a very light-hearted conversation where we humanize artists and not see them as products of society. We would like to know where are you coming from and what are you about? So if you don't mind, Dave, I'll start with you. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Dave Sylvester. I was born in Hawaii, grew up in Southern California, San Diego, but I've lived on the East Coast for a very long time. Since moving from the East Coast back to Alameda, we've been here for now 6 years.
Yes.
6 years, yes, and loving it.
Awesome. Awesome. So you've been in the Bay Area 6 years.
Yeah.
And has this been in Alameda?
Yes, this is actually my first time in Alameda. I've lived in the Bay Area in the past, around 2000 or so, in Marin and Marin actually. But this is my first time in Alameda. We lived in Oakland when we first moved here. Sorry, we lived in Oakland first, and then we moved to Alameda. But we've come to Alameda so much. I feel like we've always been in Alameda.
Awesome, great. So the first round of question, we'll just go all around just to get who people are, and then we'll get into the work with the second question. That's where we'll have a longer period where the artist speaks. We move on to Carolyn. Tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you and where you're from?
Hi. Thanks everyone for making this happen and coming tonight. This is really exciting, and thanks for asking me to talk. I'm from LA, so I was born and raised in LA, not the sexy part of LA, but LA nonetheless. And I got out as soon as I could. I came to UC Berkeley, and I have been living and working in the East Bay ever since, with a little bit of a break to go to grad school on the East Coast and then come back. And now I live in Berkeley, and I have a studio in West Oakland in the American Steel complex of buildings, which has gone through a really big change, but there are still artists there. There are still people working. And yeah, I'm a part of a small community of artists there. Awesome.
Thank you so much for that. Then we move on to Chrissy.
Hi.
I need to make notes.
I'm from New Jersey, obviously. So I was gonna say, I'm from New Jersey, so obviously I have a chip on my shoulder. But I've been in California now for so long that it's lightening a little bit. I moved to San Francisco in '89 because I met a guy with a van who was traveling out here.
I think you're frozen. Okay, while she thaws, we'll yeah, she's still frozen.
So we heard that hipsters come to Alameda to breed. So
sorry, Chrissy, you froze for like a quarter of a minute. Could you take it from meeting a guy with a van?
Sure. So I met a guy with a van who was traveling to San Francisco, and I traveled with him. And then I met my husband, lived in Berkeley for a few years, got pregnant. Didn't want my child's first words to be kind bud, because we lived right on Telegraph and Durant. And so we heard that Alameda is where hipsters come to breed. So we moved here. Been very happy with the decision. I love Alameda.
Beautiful. I love it. All right, this is going to be a really colorful one. I can feel the energy of it already. Okay, so we're going to go back to you, Dave. And what inspired you to submit? While you answer the question, if I could get the technicians to pull up Dave's image from the book. Right. So Dave, what inspired you to submit the piece you submitted? Of course, you don't have to talk about that exact piece, but feel free to.
Oh, I'm going to talk about this piece.
All right. Fair enough.
It's very important to me. So I've been an artist for a very long time. I've submitted some pieces here and there. It wasn't really like exposing myself in a sense from what I want to do. I did a lot of graphic design stuff and freelance stuff. But prior to moving here, when I met the lovely Sarah here in Florida, she noticed my talents. And so every so slightly, she would find things for me to show off my talents. And my very first, I guess, proper show, or not really show, I don't know what it was actually.
It was a show.
It was a show. Actually, maybe back up. My very first show is when I was in high school, and my artwork was displayed in the San Diego Museum of Natural Art, which is a student thing. So that was actually a very fun, like, ooh, this is like interesting. This could, go somewhere or whatever. I don't know what I was doing back then, or to look at that thing now is I'm very shy to show it off, but I was very honored to be showcased at this museum along with other artists. So then there was a gap, blah, blah, blah. Now we're back in Florida, and Sarah, we somehow found this art show that was happening in a small little town in Vero Beach, Florida on the East Coast. And she said, you should submit something. I'm like, I don't know what to submit, because most of my stuff at the time has all been sketches or not completed works, right? So I actually did have a completed piece. We got it together, and I had it displayed, my one piece among other artists. And it was an outdoor kind of scene. It was kind of cool. It was my first, I don't know, gathering of artists and stuff, because there was fire dancers and there was music and there was food, and it's really cool. So anyway, having people come up to my work and really liking what the piece that I had really like, you know, piqued my interest even more so. And somebody wanted to buy the piece, which I was very much surprised at the time. They didn't buy it. They said they were going to buy it. They said they had to go to the bank and whatnot, and they never did. But since then, that really sparked me wanting to create more, as well as other jobs at the time that I had. Moving to Oakland was a big move for the both of us. And while we're in Oakland, we just kind of did our normal whatever, just exploring the Bay Area, seeing what's around. But Sarah has been wanting to see what the Bay Area has to offer in art. So she found an artist meetup group here in Alameda, saw a show that was going to be happening in a couple of months, and it was right down my alley, and it was called Creature Feature. And that immediately piqued my interest, because the art that I had exposed in San Diego was about a bunch of little monsters. So this was easy for me in a sense. So she submitted it, but at the same time as she's submitting it, as much as I was excited, I was very nervous, because I was one of those artists that what am I going to do with that one little thing in Vero Beach, Florida, was very small. And even then I was nervous as heck just to show off my one piece. But now I have to come up with a few more pieces and be surrounded by other artists in the public, in a new place, in a proper art show. So I was very, very hesitant, but Sarah pushed and kicked and threw me into art. I'm very grateful for that.
Okay, so could we pull up the picture again?
Oh yeah,
Thanks for that, Dave. I really love the journey of how you got to show your art, and I'm always interested in the paradox that we create something to be seen, but we don't want to show it. You know, it's very interesting. So tell us a bit more about this piece that we're looking at. Is that something you're comfortable doing, or you want us to decide?
No. This is totally cool. So the Creature Feature, I had to come up with some new pieces. So my brain was scrambling on what to create. So I created these other monsters. I just spit out a variety of things. And when the theme that we came up with was
Addicted.
It was addicted, which means that, you know, everyone's always on their iPhones. Everyone's always immersed in technology and whatnot, iPads, iPhones, computers, whatever. So I decided to put a spin on it and make it monsters being in that realm, not just drawing people, because people are really difficult for me to draw. So monsters was really easy for me. So I had all these monsters, you know, on the iPhones and iPads doing their little things, very, very simple. But this little guy kind of just popped in my head. Other than the other guys I had to think about, the other artworks I had to, how's this guy gonna look? Is he gonna have horns? Is he gonna have this or whatever? And I kind of just put them together. This one really literally just popped in my head. I don't know if the other guys gave him a warm up, but it just kind of happened. And I'm very much influenced by Tim Burton type style and Ghibli, or is it Ghibli?
Ghibli, I think.
Ghibli Studios, Spirited Away and whatnot, that kind of style. So this guy popped in my head, and I never had names for my creatures. So Sarah's the one that named everybody. So this guy's aptly named Bunny Tick.
the top one is Bunny Tick. That's Bunny Tick.
Yeah. And
then his owner is Monkberry Moon Delight.
And this was done in acrylic, and this is actually a big piece. It's probably my very first large piece up in the, was it 24 by something?
It's 24 by 20
something.
Or 32 or
and that's not that big, but for me, it's a big piece in acrylic. And so the guy below, he's also attached to the addicted theme, and he's on his iPhones walking his pet, who's just, you know, happy to be just being around, and whether or not his owner notices him or not.
Right. So one thing I noticed about your work, of course, it's very surreal, but there's a gentleness about it, but also an uneasiness about it, because they're unfamiliar creatures. So there's a point of reference like the bunny, but no, a bunny doesn't look like that. It doesn't
Right.
look in the sky.
Right.
So you're really, for me personally, I find myself pulled in by something familiar and then jogged by the reality of its location. Like it's in the sky and it's a bunny, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And then the owner, turning upside down of roles, the owner is way down there. So in a way, in a sense, he could be crushed by, by his pet. Could you speak more on that? Because I think there's a lot going on in there.
Well, you make an interesting point. I'm always fascinated by people's interpretation of this, and for any art, really. I love how people can just take their view away or different from what the artist perceived. Again, I think I had the guy in the bottom as the main, he was the first go-to, but I didn't know what to have him do. And I just imagined him being small, whatever. Whoop. Sorry. It's all right. I got dark. You know what, Victor? I really don't know.
That's perfect.
Happened, and I my actual initiation for monsters is to have this pleasant, happy-go-lucky, calm, whatever, as opposed to the craggly, mean, roaring. I can do those. I mean, those are fun to look at, and I kind of venture off into the dark part of it, but I love doing this, and I just love the people's reaction over this kind of style.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. Not to put any of you on the spot by asking you, oh yeah, it looks like you reverse role. What were you thinking? I'm just, this is just my interpretation to it. But I love the work because it really makes me think, and it makes me feel uncomfortable in my own wanting to control the image and have it right in my own image. So yeah, I love that. Maybe some people have questions in the audience. I would love to hear what people think about it. And thanks for giving us the ownership of, oh, there we go.
So wait, so real quick to add to this, Bunny Tick has become somewhat popular in his own right, but Sarah surprised me one Christmas by having this made into a plush toy.
Yeah, and
as well as the guy as well as the one holding the phone.
Wow, that is incredible.
And Sarah has made Bunny Tick into wearable art too. So he's got a wide range of mediums, I have to say.
Bunny Tick has been our identifier here as our art career in California.
Definitely.
He's definitely our mascot. He's precious to us. I made him into a metal wearable art piece, and I also sculpted him into a piece, and Dave has sold different versions of him as well as different versions of
except for the original. The original
is ours. We can never part with that.
It's hanging upstairs, and
I love that. Oh, I love that. I really want to see where the conversation goes with that and people's interpretation to your work. But I want to say thank you for giving us the ownership of the work. I've had artists tell me, no, that's not what the work is about. So you kind of feel like, oh, it's not my place to interpret it. But thanks for giving us the liberty to look at it as we will. So much appreciated. Right, we'll get back to you, Dave. Thanks so much. Carolyn, what inspired you? If we could bring up Carolyn's piece, what inspired you to submit the piece you submitted, or what inspires you in general with your art?
In general, that's a kind of a hard thing to answer right now. So I'll say what exactly inspired this piece, but I think to answer that question, I have to give a little bit of some context, because this body of work, which this is a start, this piece is about 54 inches by 48 inches or something. It's pretty big. So it's a piece that combines like all of these meanderings in my art my time being an artist. Painting, collage, rhythm, pattern, and drawing. I never really knew how to be an artist that like had a brand. And that's something that I was always told to come up with from people that are about selling art. Like, artists have to have a brand. You have to have a look. You have to have something that's recognizable. You have to this, you have to have a style. And I understood that to be true from a marketing perspective, and also a, just like a money perspective. Like, that's how you build a business. You become recognizable. But when it comes to art and creativity and making art, I don't believe that artists all the time are always on brand. Like, our brains go all over the place all the time. And just because we might make something and make a body of work doesn't mean that that won't get exploded the next month, you know? So I found myself over the course of 20 years exploring everything from cast glass and going up to Pilchuck and outside of Seattle to being like obsessed with ceramics, Renaissance drawing technique. And then I did graduate school, and part of that graduate school was in Venice, Italy, where I did paintings of like all the decay that's on the buildings there. And I ended up cutting that up and fitting it in my suitcase and coming back and realizing that my paintings could be three-dimensional. And that's what started me on this collage aspect. And I did that for many years and never did drawing again. And I'd say in the last 15 months, I've been trying to put all of my meanderings together and combine drawing and what I learned about Renaissance drawing technique with rhythm, pattern, texture, and painting. And I was like, how do I do that? What could be so interesting that would make me like spend all of that time, because these take forever to make these portraits. And the answer wasn't something conceptual, well, I'll say like intellectually, or it just kind of came to me. It's the people in my community here in the East Bay that I started to realize making portraits of them would be so fun, and to reimagine them as almost like mythical beings. And when I say my community, I'll be more specific. Like, being an artist hasn't always paid the bills. So I've been in the restaurant industry in the East Bay for about 20 years. And I've worked in all kinds of places. My last job was at Chez Panisse in Berkeley. And I've started to draw my coworkers. So I finished a few. I think I have about 6 of these portraits in process. And this one is of Christian. I should say they, because they do not identify traditionally. It's a work in progress, let's put it that way. Christian worked with me at Chez Panisse. And so I created this portrait from something that they saw me do. They saw me do a little sketch of like a voodoo princess. And they said, I love that. So I started to imagine them in this sort of like bayou tropical world. And then I started to create the piece around that. So Christian's portrait, is one of like 6 that I'm working on, and they range in size from, I'd say, this is one of the smallest. 52 inches by 48 is one of the smallest. One of them is 9 feet by 40, about 50 inches. I'm trying to get them as close to human scale as possible, but they're a little smaller than human scale. So that was a lot of words I just threw at you. I don't know, maybe I'll stop there and let you kind of guide the next thing I say. I could just keep talking forever.
No, that's really beautiful. I think that's what these art talks are about, to see how the artist thinks and walks us through their work. And that was really beautiful, because you kind of addressed who the art was about and where it came from, and your journey, the way interlaces with the artwork. And
it started to take on another significance too. During the pandemic, almost all of these people lost their jobs. So where I worked, Chez Panisse had to close down. Lots of restaurants, a lot of people I know in that industry all over are really, they're like trying to figure out career changes. They're trying to create lots of side hustles right now. They're making things in their garage. They're doing everything they can to survive right now. And for me, like it became really exciting to like continue to draw their portraits and then almost like reimagine them as like very, very powerful beings, and in like my own little weird woo-woo way, like imbue them with power, which I don't know, it's just an idea. It keeps me going. But I did get this piece in the De Young Museum, which was really exciting. I got 2 of those pieces in that latest show that was about Bay Area artists. So I had 2 of my coworkers in the museum, and they got to see their image in the museum. And that was, I think, nice for them, you know? So that made me feel good as well. Yeah, it's just a weird time for that whole industry. And I like the idea of creating work that imagines these people as very, very powerful. So.
Powerful. Whew. Yeah, that kind of sent shivers down my spine. It's because I'm so sorry. I just said, I just got shivers down my spine when you said that, because the one thing we can do is either empower each other or disempower each other. And a simple look can empower somebody. You know, when you say you have a beautiful smile, have a great day, when it comes from it's really empowering, it's uplifting. And just to hear you walk us through these were my co-workers, they lost their jobs, they trying side hustles. You know, we can see the whole impact of the pandemic. And then they're in a museum. It's almost poetic, like you lose your job, but you're in a museum. You know what I mean? It's like, what's really important? So for me, what's hitting home is relationships, valuing people for who they are, what they are. And so thanks for sharing that. That was a very candid expression of your life and your work. And your work is really beautiful. Just like Dave, sorry, I didn't say your work is really beautiful, but yeah, I love it. I love it too. And I couldn't say more about that, but this is the part that gets me about these talks. I didn't know you. I didn't know your story. I didn't know your thought process. And just to hear that from Italy to the De Young Museum via Chez Panisse, you know, what a story. Thanks so much for sharing that. If we have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll be happy to address those as we go. Alice says, thanks for doing the close-ups. The collage is amazing. Just so you know, that's coming through the chat. Thanks so much, Carolyn. If anybody has questions for Dave or Carolyn, please make a note of those. We'll take questions shortly after Chrissy speaks on. What pronouns do you use, Chrissy?
Hi. What did you say? Sorry.
What pronouns do you go by?
Oh, she, her. Yeah. Okay.
So after Chrissy has spoken about her work, right? So Chrissy, it's on to you. What inspired the piece you submitted for the book, or what inspires your work in general?
Okay. You know, I almost didn't submit to the book because I thought of, Jessica had told me about it and I thought, oh, well, this is fine artist and I do cartoons and it's probably not a fit. And Jessica is just like the most wonderful, supportive person. And she pushed me to do it, or gave me a little nudge reminder. And so I did submit a cartoon, and I was very happy to be included. I think of what I do as sort of more almost like jokes with doodles. I don't think of myself as a fine artist. So that wasn't the question. The question was what inspired this one. For me, it's always about the joke. I mean, this one, it's obviously a lady who's a little bit fancy and a little bit privileged, and it's maybe a little ridiculous. And she definitely wants to speak to your manager because she could smell something wonderful like toast or a croissant. It's a little bit of a remark about diet culture or low carb eating. It's not meant to be mean, more like silly and absurd and relatable, even if you are the croissant. Even though she's kind of the butt of the joke, whenever I draw any of my characters, I love them. Like the whole time I'm drawing them and kind of creating them, I'm telling myself sort of little stories about them. And I think a lot about the characters, and I try and make them all lovable, and I try and make them diverse and represent a lot of different points of view. And yeah, that's what I'm attempting to do.
All right. Could you tell us a bit about her story? Who is she? Who is she?
Who is she? She, well, I don't want to tell you about her job. That's, she is doing everything right. And she just feels like she's not getting enough credit for that.
Gotcha. All right. So what?
And cooperation. She's not getting cooperation from the universe either.
Like maybe the direction to sit where it smells less of contact carbs.
Exactly. For instance, right.
All right. When I look at this, it just makes me think of cancel culture. You know.
Sure.
You know, we live in this society where we've got to be PC about everything, you know, about the way you go about everything. So when I saw this, it just reminded me of the delicate times we live in. But at the same time, delicate times, but at the same time, so violent, which carries such a violent reality to them. So the empty space around it. Could you comment on why we cannot locate her? There is no location, or you don't have to, but I'm just interested.
I think that I always sort of objectify the person a little bit, and I think that's why I give them a lot of space around them. I mean, I'm I'm objectifying my characters for this moment in time where they're having their moment to speak.
Beautiful. I love it. And the fact that she's addressing me, you know, she's looking directly at me, you know, I feel like I've got to answer.
You're probably having a muffin right now, aren't you?
You know what I mean? And it really spoke to me, because I felt like sometimes I've been asked to do things that are out of my control. Like, what do you expect me? That's your problem. That's not my problem, you know? And of course, everybody has the right to say what makes them comfortable, but it brings to question, how do we function as a society when, you know, the very air around you becomes offensive?
Right.
Yeah. Wow. And the choice of color, could you speak on the medium?
My background was in photography, black and white. I love black and white. And I started when I first started making cartoons, I did them very simply in just sort of, you know, black ink pens and paper. And, you know, I paint as well. When I paint, I use a lot of color, but when I draw, it's all black and white. And I'm not sure why.
Awesome.
Because, you know why? Because with the cartoons, the point is the joke. And so keeping it very simple emphasizes the joke, I think.
How do you feel about the fact that the joke carries a lot of truth in it? It's almost like
I hope so.
True.
I hope so. That's my intention. I mean, yeah, I'm just making a smart remark, but I think that, you know, there are layers to everything we say. And yeah, I hope that the characters, although maybe the joke, are also somewhat dimensional or relatable, and like I said, lovable. That's the bottom.
Beautiful.
Bottom line for me. I am trying to heal in a certain way. You know, the like all of you thing is trying to be inclusive and trying to find the beauty in everyone.
I'm just reading a comment. Chrissy, and you make me laugh. What? I can't.
I think I'm insulted. I'm out of here. I don't know.
No, I'm just saying they make you laugh at yourself, at the stupid stuff that you do. That's all I say.
Gotcha. All right. Awesome. So this has been quite a ride, from Dave's monsters, which make you self-reflect on, you know, the monsters we create taking over our lives, to Carolynn's beautiful journey, you know, and even the medium, collaging, almost like putting things together to make it work. More like you said, your co-workers are hustling now just to find a means to survive. You know, there's it looks like the story is gelling together so well about the human condition there. Then Chrissy's cartoons just cap it all off. Like, it's about, this show has been about the human condition, you know, where we are and what we're doing and who's around us, you know. And to think that, Carolynn, you've given somebody something to tell their grandchildren, that I was in the De Young Museum at one time. Think about that. That's what you did. How powerful is that? You know. So with that being said, I would like to just remind people that the talks will be on FridayArtWalk.com, and feel free to browse through there. There are a lot of talks you will see there. And also check out ArtPush.org and see what they're about. They help put this together and bring the community of artists together. And I would like to say we are making history, because throughout the year of the pandemic, we managed to get artists together every second Friday and have these amazing talks. And if anybody says this is not amazing, I would like to question them again, because we've just heard the most unique stories, the most unique perspectives. And I'm so honored to be part of this. So finally, our last question, we do have 24 minutes to go, so we're well on time. What we can do with this one is just open it up to the artists and feel free to discuss as we go. How are you navigating the current climate, however you interpret that to be? And how has it impacted you and your work? I know we've covered some of this, but who would like to take it away first? Or should I assign?
I'll just say, may I?
Yes.
It's been quite the year. And I'm super grateful that we have a new president. And, you know, this year, I mean, the pandemic obviously has, a lot of my work is observational, and I make art based on like overheard conversations at cafes and bookstores and Ross Dress for Less, and being out in the world and not being out in the world. It's hard to find the joke sometimes. And because also it's hard to find the jokes too, because I'm having to deal with how racist our country is, and how some of us have food scarcity right now, and how some of us don't have employment, or some of us are ill, or just struggling. So trying to find the jokes has become harder. And and I mostly can find them. And I try and see the bright side. I try and see like, hey, we also have all these great scientists making vaccines for us. And I see so many people caring about racial justice and standing up and trying to be better. And that gives me hope. So that's how this time has affected my work anyway, and my thought process.
Thanks for sharing, Chrissy. Thank you.
Love you, Chrissy.
Mwah.
Dave, you can go on.
Yeah, I mean, that was really powerful, Chrissy. A little lump in my throat there,
Yeah.
but it's very true though. And we all tackle it differently. Art has, since moving here, Sarah and I have been like, nonstop with the gallery, and we have shows and stuff. And yeah, as you guys have seen, who've been to it, it's a lot of energy and it's a lot of fun. And aside from the gallery, the shows, we had other shows to go to where the other bars are showing our stuff, and we had to be there for that and showing our stuff. So being surrounded by artists and people liking the work was really energizing. And obviously last year it sapped all that. We don't have the gallery. No one comes to our gallery. No one goes to the bars where our artist is, where our art is. Our art has been at a brewery, local brewery here for over a year and a half now. So it's a nice place. I mean, and we're happy that it's there, but it's hard. The energy definitely went, and the only thing that kept me kind of going in the art world is just constantly sketching. And I've got sketches all over the place, whether it's dark or happy or whatever. And I use, the social media as a kind of a, not a kind of a boost, like a self-gratifying boost. You're like, oh, I got 1 like, or I got 2 likes. Oh, it's just something to keep like, okay, there's people who are liking their stuff, my stuff on whatever platform they're looking at. And there's times where I haven't posted like in a long time, and it's either because I was busy or just the vibe was not there. And I don't like to post things that I'm just really not feeling at all. Sarah likes to find my sketches and post things and show it off to the world.
I find them on the floor.
Yes.
And I'll frame them and put them in our gallery.
But just constantly doing something creative, I think, has really kept my sanity, because you can totally let go and go down that rabbit hole, which I have.
Well, tell
down
them,
the rabbit
tell
hole.
them about how being locked inside and not being out and about has impacted your, not like a lot of your creatures are inspired by real people.
Yeah, and that's very true what Sarah just said. And that is hard. And the pieces that I've been, well, yeah, I don't know how to.
I just always love, I know it's not my show, but I'm promoting this guy right here. I always loved that we'd be standing on the waiting for a train at BART, and he'd see somebody and he's like, oh my gosh, I have to draw, that's a creature. And he'd draw them. Or we'd be sitting in traffic and he'd look over and see somebody driving and he'd be like, oh my gosh, that's a creature. And he'd draw them. And so a lot of his inspirations of monsters and creatures that he does are actually from real people he sees.
And that's true. That's going back to me constantly trying to do something. We go for our walks and I'll do that. So I know I can't go to a public place where there's a lot of people, but I'll see them walking whatever and just doing that. So got to find something to keep you rolling, because you'll totally lose it.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, and also where the creatures come from. It's always interesting to see the source. Yeah, it got a little heavy in here. I hope people are remembering to breathe. It's heavy stuff. Okay, Carolyn, thanks Dave and Chrissy for sharing, and sharing from your heart. It makes, enough said. Carolyn, it's yours.
So how has this time impacted the work is the question? Well,
or you also.
What's that?
Or you personally.
There's just been so much. I mean, it's been a very, very crazy year in terms of lots of dramatic change in the outside, macrocosm, also in the microcosm. I moved out of a place that I was in for 15 years. I ended some relationships. I started some new ones. So it's been just really tumultuous. In terms of art, I dramatically stopped working in restaurants on March 15th because things went into lockdown. And all of a sudden I had all this time on my hands to make art and not a lot of money. So what needed to happen right away was a way for me to parlay what I was doing in art into like multiple consumable objects that I can sell. And that became sort of my project. So I started to figure out, how do I make all this stuff that's happening in my brain objects that are like relatively affordable that I can sell to pay my rent? And so that happened, and that was like first order of business. Second order of business was to try and get my work into the DM Museum. So that was like what I started working on too. And then I started to realize like making all this like what I call more consumable art started informing what I consider the more fine art. And then the fine art started informing like what I consider the Etsy art, you know, that I'm making and I have, you know, I sell on Etsy, and thank God for that, because that's how I pay my rent now. So with that being said, it hasn't just been some like beautiful journey into creative land. Like it's been a depressing time, and for me, it's very hard to make art when I'm depressed. I know some people thrive off like their pain to like make art. I'm just not like that, you know? I need to be happy, joyous, and free to feel like I need to be emptied of a lot of angst so I can fill myself up with like a lot of energy and then just like pour it out. And sometimes it's been just really unattainable in this pandemic time. But it's okay. It's actually been, it's been kind of taboo to, I've been hearing like it's taboo to talk about the good stuff that happened out of this pandemic, because in a way it's insensitive to the people who have lost loved ones and the tragedy and like fuck Trump and, you know, it's like terrible racial injustice. Like at the same time, life still went on and there was good stuff that came out of it. And for me, it was getting a lot stronger in a daily art practice and trying to push through a little bit of the depression and make art. And for me, learning also like how I started out this talk was talking about like, I don't know how to be a brand. Like, I don't know that. And I learned out of necessity because I needed to pay rent, you know? It's like, how do I turn it into a brand? Because that's Instagram and that's Etsy and that's that world where artists can monetize their work. How do I harness that so I can pay my bills right now? And that's what I did. And that's been cool. I mean, like that's been, I guess, like the cool journey in this is what this year has taught me. And that is a great thing, because hopefully I won't go, when Chez Panisse opens up or any other restaurants, I don't intend to go back. I want to continue doing exactly what I'm doing now. I have no personal need to like, you know, work in a restaurant, although I love the community. I love the people. And I'm sorry if there's some tech workers on this call, but like, I love this group of people that work in service, because in the Bay Area, there's just so much wealth and tech workers and people that are not as invested in the arts. And in the restaurant community, in the service community, there's tons of artists, actors, writers, and poets. And so that's why I find it like super nourishing to be a part of that community. All right, that's lots of words. I'm gonna stop. Thank you.
If I may ask you not to apologize for the amount of words, because they're really beautiful and inspiring. Imagine the 12-year-old who's asking themselves the big existential question, like, how do I do life? And they come across your words, you know, it gives them a path to say, when you face hardships, you ask yourself the big questions. How do I do this? How do I use the things going on in my head to pay my rent, literally, you know? And I love the way you tied it up, because you started by talking about empowering people. Then you finished off by empowering yourself, by saying, hopefully I won't have to go back to the restaurant. Imagine that the person who's out there thinking, I've got so much talent, but here I am serving people. You know, this is,
that's
so powerful.
Many people. That is so many people in the world, and not just restaurant workers. Like, there are creatives in every, you know, walk of life that are just dying to quit the day job, you know. And yeah, I mean, the thing with Instagram and like is that it can create so much pressure on people to perform and look shiny and successful, and that can be detrimental to artists. But at the same time, it's like become this tool where we get to bypass galleries and just sell right on our own. Galleries that may have always taken 50 to 60% of the sale. And that's a huge thing that's opening up for artists, you know, and that's a huge tool and something that can be harnessed. So that's a good thing.
Awesome.
And I have to just say, I love your sweatshirt, Miss Y. It's just like so great.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of the questioning. I'll just do some housekeeping to say that these talks will be available on FridayArtWalk.com, and you'll see a plethora of amazing artist talks like the one we've just had now. And the beauty of it is they're so different, just so individual. And I would encourage you to share them with your friends, share them with your family. There's just so many insights to be gained from there. And with that, I would like to say thank you so much to the artists for being so precious and being so generous with yourselves. You could have just chosen to answer in a meh kind of way. What do I care? But you gave us so much. And with that, I would like to open it up to the audience. If we can have a free discussion. We have 10 minutes to go. If there are any questions to the artists, if the artists have questions for each other, this is the time to just interact and share thoughts or comments or your day. Hi, David.
I have a comment if anyone else is speaking. I just think one of the themes I thought was really interesting between the three artists is how much they draw from people around them. So like I mentioned, how Dave, you know, he sees people on the subway or on the bus or walking when we're out in a bar. A lot of his little themes, one of our things we used to love to do together is go draw in bars. And he came up with a theme of people like with their different pets on their heads. And this was just because we kept seeing people in the bars with their dogs, and it just came to him. And then Carolyn, drawing the people you work with and your friends, and Chrissy, your inspiration it's based on jokes, but it's like I feel like I met that girl. You know, I feel like I've seen her at either work or in a cafe, you know, so it's just really cool how different the art is in medium and in feeling and in style, but yet it's all almost drawn from the same place in interactions with other people. And it's Chrissy, your touching, you know, discussion about how much the pandemic has impacted you. It's hard for social people that, you know, I consider myself an introverted extrovert. And I feel like Dave's kind of the same way too. We love to go out and we love to be surrounded by people, but at the same time, we're like, don't talk to me right now. You know, like, you know, we're kind of observers. We're observers.
Same, very much so.
Yeah.
You know, the poet Bukowski had a line, I love people. I just find them happier when they're not around. I love to be around people, but I get overwhelmed pretty easily.
Yeah, when a lot of people are trying
to
Yeah, but I like that energy of being around people and just being able to observe. And I think we miss that more than anything, is our little ritual. Even the owners of bars have told us that. Like, so the bar, Alameda Island Brewing Company, that's had our work up for over a year, they always, every time we go there, they thank us. They were like, thank you for leaving your art. It makes us so happy to see it. And we miss you guys coming, and we used to love to see what you guys were working on. And so it's like, it's a nice little community to have, where positivity and just creativity. It's kind of been felt dry lately. Yeah. So anyway, I've thought that little thread was interesting, because everybody's work was so different, but there was that underlying theme, that connecting thread.
Miss Y had a question. Joanne Yada. Yada. I'd love to find out from each artist what's next. Are there any other ways you're showing art virtually or otherwise, not in person? So I guess we want to hear from the panelists, if you don't mind.
Can I speak on that?
Yeah.
I just had a meeting tonight with, and thanks for the question. Thanks for making us think about like what's in the future. So where I have a studio in West Oakland, we have a great sort of space attached to our studio called the Hangar Gallery, and we're making it, we're fashioning it into like a really beautiful gallery right now. So tonight I was brainstorming about new shows that we kind of want to get started again. I know it's a strange thing, like we don't know what protocol will necessarily be absolutely necessary come June 2021, but we're thinking to start planning art openings live and in person and just see how it goes. Just like start the ball rolling. And so I'm gonna curate a show called Everything That Rises Must Converge, and it's based on a Flannery O'Connor. She's a American author who's awesome, problematic, beautiful writing, really dark and macabre at times, but she has this beautiful, anyways, I'm all over the place. I'm curating a show about trying to like see what's rising up from the ashes of like this last year. And that'll be, I think, our next big project. As
Carolyn, I would love to put you in contact. Do you know the artist Zoe Boston?
Oh yeah.
Her art in the book, that's also in the book that you're in, is called We Will Rise.
Oh, cool. Yeah, definitely.
And it would be perfect for that.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll have to put you guys in touch.
Okay. But so that'll be like, basically, we're going to try and start having art shows happen starting in June. And I just got an offer to be in a show in Tiburon, so that'll probably happen in September. But really what I want to do is make the portraits, like create a series of about 20 and create a restaurant, like create an actual like working pop-up restaurant for one night and have all the work shown alongside the restaurant. Kind of create a fake restaurant in a gallery, but have it completely like a working restaurant for one night. But I have to figure out when that can happen in terms of like COVID. So that's my next step, but definitely starting to curate shows and start like a ceramics show, paper art show, and we have a few other things in the work at the Hangar Gallery. So let's let you guys know. Thanks.
Thanks so much for that. We do have 3 minutes to go. After that, we'll be officially done with the art panel, but people are free to hang out and just, you know, let it come to its own closure within reason. So back to the panelists. What's next? Anybody else want to chime in?
I'll chime in. I've always been wanting to do one, and it's, you know, how you do it is very tricky and difficult, but just got to put your foot forward and just go for it. Is I'm making a children's book.
Oh, fabulous! Yay! A children's book. Good.
As simple as it, as simple
with puppets. Yes.
as simple as the thing may be, it's going to be an ABC book, but obviously there has to be.
Let me share something with you. You posted something on Instagram of a girl, a child by a puddle.
Yes.
I really love that. Oh, I'll buy that, by the way.
That's
That's fun.
Everybody loves the puddle series.
That started with our rains a couple of years ago, and so every time it rains now, that's going to be my thing. I'm going to do something whenever it rains when I can.
There goes your title, Whenever It Rains.
I would love if I can have enough of those.
Oh, that's fabulous.
It'd be
Yeah.
a fun book to have. But if people have been paying attention to my Instagram, I actually did a funny thing with the book that I'm making, and there was a slip up. That's all I'm going to say. So it's going to be an Easter egg.
Yeah, he's got a little Easter egg. So he's doing animals, but his own unique take on animals with the alphabet for the first children's book.
Yes.
We'd love to do the puddle series.
A monster.
And we have a monster.
Are you you're hoping to get a publisher for that, right?
Yes.
Oh yes, Penguin. Simon & Schuster.
I was going to say, Cheryl, we definitely want to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a word of thing, because I'm in the middle of trying to market my book right now. And I was talking to an agent in New York, and the first thing she said to me is, have you published anything of your book online? No, agents do not want to touch it. So just to be aware that not to publish your work, right?
Can I fake it and Photoshop it?
Even if it's like
No, it's not. Yeah, I mean, if you, then an agent is worried about that. That's all. Just to let you know that.
This first one we might have to self-publish. We'll see.
That's a good.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, your stuff is fantastic. I mean, I can see not just books, but all those fabulous stuffed animals that go with them. I mean, they're absolutely gorgeous. I mean, you have a real, I mean, that could just go anywhere.
Cheryl,
you should not just say, oh, I'm just going to self-publish because nobody's going to publish.
While Cheryl is frozen.
You know what? It's just a numbers game. You find out who's interested in your stuff. You put together your shit, and then you just put it out there, and someone will publish your stuff. They will. Absolutely. I mean, it's unique. It's wonderful. I mean, every time you post something, I smile. I know you say there's all these, I didn't see any darkness there. I just love, I mean, right.
While Cheryl is frozen, I'd like to.
Oh, shit.
That's right. Go to Victor right there.
I'm working on it.
Okay. While Cheryl was frozen, I was going to officially end the talk and just give a big thank you to Carolynn, Dave, and Chrissy for the amazing insights you gave us, for sharing such a deep and personal part of yourselves in not only educating, informing, but also entertaining, you know, keeping people lighthearted at such heavy times. And I couldn't thank you enough, you know, and you empowered us in so many ways, Carolynn. We would like to thank you about that. Thanks for the reflections, Dave. What monsters are we creating? And what monsters have we become in our own lives? And for Chrissy, for reminding us to laugh sometimes, find the joke, you know. And I was gonna say, unfortunately, my takeaway was gonna be, it's getting harder to find the joke, but because it's so true. It's so true, you know. It's time to get a little serious, but let's not forget to laugh about it, especially at ourselves. So thanks so much for such a beautiful lesson in the human condition, in looking at ourselves, our surroundings, and our work. You know, what do we put out in the world, and what does it mean to us personally? I couldn't say more about that. With that, we officially end February 12th, 2021. It's Art Talk, and do share it with friends, family. Send it to a university art department. Why not? I'm going to do it next week and say, hey, this is what we have in the Bay. And with that, I bid you good night. If you're going to stay on for a couple more minutes, please do stay. Otherwise, we're done. Thanks for watching.